Recording in progress.
My gavel in order here. Jones, Corporate Officer for qathet Regional Hospital District. I will call this January 28th, 2025 Hospital meeting orders. We'd like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional ancestral territory of the Tla'amin Nation. As this is our first meeting, normally the first order of business would be the election of the chair. However, I've been notified that the CEO would like to make some introductions to the board.
Normally I'd say through the chair, but we don't have it. Part of our officer bylaw states that as soon as we bring somebody new on, we're supposed to introduce them to you as soon as practically possible. As this is our first meeting since this individual has come on, I'm going to ask Pat Devereaux to introduce his new hire.
Thank you. I want to introduce the board to Mick Drostovich. He is our new manager of assets and capital projects.
Welcome.
Thank you. Never prepared speech. No, I'm just kidding.
And if I may, Mick comes to us from the city of Powell River, where he spent 15 years in the engineering department.
Oh, thank you. Welcome.
Would it be
We let people
ask you all to introduce yourselves to him?
Sure. Clay Brander, Electoral Area C representative and chair of the QRD.
Rob Sokol, municipal director.
Mark Gisborne, Electoral Area B, Paradise Valley, Myrtle Rocks area.
In the hallway, Jason Lennox, Area A, north of Tla'amin.
Maybe a familiar face for people. Cindy Ellett, yes, full director.
And just before I go to those on the screen, I'll just let Director Fall know we've just introduced our new manager of capital projects and assets, Mick Drostovich. And so we're doing introductions and we'll go to Director Fall next.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. I'm Andrew Fall, Regional Director for Area E, which is Laskidi Island, White Ete.
And Director McCormick.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. I'm Sandy McCormick, Director for Area G, Jacksade Island. Welcome.
Before I go further, I believe Director Louis is just joining us. And I'll just let him. You have to turn the audio off.
Yeah, I just did.
It's on me.
I get it.
Hi, Director Louis. We're just having a quick.
Yeah. This is down here.
Settings. Speaker, just the speaker off. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Director Louis, as you're just joining us, I just wanted to let you know that before we go to election of the chair, we're just introducing a new staff member. You see him on the camera there with Patrick Devereaux. It's Mick Drostovich. And I'll just make the introduction. This is our Tla'amin Nation Director. Okay, thank you, everyone. Oh, you can say something if you would like, Director Louis.
No, I was just going to say thank you. And how's everyone doing?
Okay. So now that is done, we're going to move on to election of the chair. And I'll call upon the members of this assembly for nominations for the position of chair. Director Lennox.
Yeah, thank you. I nominate Director Gisborne for chair.
Director Gisborne, you've been nominated. Do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call a second time for nominations for position of chair. I'm going to call a third and final time for nominations for position of chair. As no other nominations have been received, Director Gisborne is awarded position of the chair by acclamation, and I will now hand over chairing this meeting to Chair Warren.
Thank you. And I'll move up so that people aren't looking at the back of my head. It's not because I'm going bald. Heard. Oh, maybe it's a little because I'm going bald. Spill my coffee. Okay, we've had item number 1 called to order, number 2, election of the chair. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. As I'm sure you've seen, there's been a slight change since it was originally published, with the proposed in-camera session being item 4.1. Are there any changes? If not, then I would like to see a motion for approval of the agenda. So moved by Director Lennox, seconded by Director Southcott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Now, item number 4, proposed closed session. Would anyone like to make the motion? Director Elliott.
I move that the board move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under sections 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the board considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And N, the consideration of whether a board meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
Second by Director Lennox. Any discussion? That's what we usually discuss. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. We are going into closed session.
If I may, Chair, can we just let the members who are attending virtually know that we will be returning back to open session?
Yes.
Because we do have some modifications today.
Yes. So any members of the public and the delegations, we don't usually go into camera first. It's just more of a time sensitivity thing. We will be coming back into open session to deal with delegations, minutes, and the other items of business on our agenda. So big apologies to the delegations and members of the public that are here at 3 o'clock ready to get to business. But this is what we got to do. With that, we're going in camera.
Surge will be staying.
It feels so cluttered up here. There's not a ton of room. It's gavel. Thank you. Okay, we're moving into open session. It means don't start talking about the in-camera stuff.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Chair. We're back in session.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay, everyone. Our next item of business is adoption of the minutes, item 5.1. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I have a mover?
That board meeting
Lennox,
just went
Director
unopened in
McCormick.
camera. I gotta go back into the meeting here.
Oh. Okay, I believe we'll, Patrick Devereaux gets that sorted out. Are there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None, that is carried. Okay, moving on to delegations, 6.1, Dr. Ron Abrams, is he with us?
Hi, yes, I am.
Hello, welcome. We're on item number 6.1. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to make this request. I'm a physician and a board member of the Last Resort Society, which oversees the Judith Fisher Health Center, which is accredited. And it's with respect and thanks that I'm presenting from Lasqueti Island, Wahite. Basically, we're asking for $70,000 as a capital investment from your board to upgrade our power system. And in fact, as of the weekend, our lead acid batteries died, and we're now on generators. And we've ordered lithium batteries, state of the art, which hopefully will be installed, delivered and installed by Tuesday or Wednesday. Our community, if you don't know, is an off-grid community of about 350 people. And the health center supplies health services to this community. And the health center really supplies a regular nursing clinic, vaccine clinics, counseling massage clinics, respite and palliative care. And we also support 3 seniors in our independent living units that are on site. We support them with the health services. This health center is critical to the health care of the community because, first of all, we have a foot ferry that only runs 5 days a week. And in the current state of healthcare in BC, if not Canada, there's a shortage of GPs, primary healthcare availability to people. And so our community actually relies on this health center to provide some basic health services. We also have some visiting physicians who come once in a while and use the clinic. And I personally am available. The community knows they can call me if there's an acute medical reason or something they need. And I actually see them in the clinic. So it's basically fundamental to our community's health well-being, and we really need to keep this health center functioning, particularly with because it's off-grid, because we're dependent on battery power. So with this background, we're just asking with cap in hand if you would consider a capital investment of $70,000 to replace our batteries and make them state-of-the-art and meeting electrical code. And that's it.
Thank you. Before we get a motion on the floor, we're going to get a speakers list going. Who would like to speak first? Okay, we got Director Lennox. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Really appreciate the work you're doing and on Lasqueti. Just looking at your the report before us here, the correspondence, a couple questions come to mind, and more might as we talk about it. There's a statement addendum at the end about communicating with the existing SMA equipment, and I guess my question is relevant to how do we prevent a further sudden loss of battery power that necessitates kind of quick action like this, or how can we get it into asset management where you can see the lifespan of these batteries? Is that program SMA, or is that a different, like, maybe you can explain how we could avoid, like, how we got to this position of all of a sudden the batteries are dead, or is there a way to monitor that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And it really speaks to the fact that The batteries we're putting in are lithium batteries. They have a 10-year lifespan. Um, we we need to coordinate them with the inverters. And we this quote is to make sure that it's all done to electrical code. So we foresee 10 years of guaranteed, warranted power for the health center. Specifically to why we're in this emergency situation, we've been monitoring these batteries, and quite frankly, our health center is dependent on donations to keep functioning. And maybe we were a little bit slow in coming to you, but I apologize for that. But we're sort of looking forward to working with you. And I'm going to say to you, 70K is the first of many requests we're going to make in the future to upgrade the health center services. Such things as increasing the solar panels that we have, increasing the water supply. We're looking at trying to build accommodation for visiting nurse practitioners and GPs. We're looking at trying to bring in dentistry on site, visiting dentists. And we're also looking at just providing more services. I think that's pretty well it.
Just quick follow-up. I appreciate your explanation. I guess I'm one of the newer directors. I'm not quite as up to speed on how your funding comes together in capital. And I know we have Miss Green in, and maybe I stand to learn about what we do for you and what we don't do for you as a regional hospital district.
Yeah, so my understanding is we're coming to you for capital investment. VIHA provides the salary and nursing costs for the nurses. Our island is off grid, and well, actually 10 years ago, your board granted $125,000 as a capital investment when the health center was being built. We haven't come to you since then for capital investment. So this is probably the first of many requests and working with you guys in the future. We look forward to working with you in the future. But up until now, it's been donations from the community. Our 3 independent living units were built strictly on donation and volunteer labor. The health center up until now is mostly volunteer labor, aside from the administrator who gets paid, the maintenance crew gets paid, and that kind of thing. So it's a lot of it is volunteer donations, and now we're hoping that we can work with you in the future for capital investment.
Anyone else on this? Oh, we'll go with Director Elliott, and then Director McCormick will be next on the speakers list.
So am I to understand you have a solar grid that puts power into the batteries, and then the batteries run all of the things that you've listed in your thing, and the solar panels generate enough power to run all of that stuff?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's used to the lithium batteries, but personally, we used to have lead acid batteries in our house on Lesquiti. Now we're on lithium batteries, and it's just a godsend in terms of power ability and stability. Now what we want to do is we do have solar panels, but we want to increase the capacity of that because we are looking towards building more independent senior units. As our community ages, we have more people who cannot live on their own off-grid in their houses, and looking forward to staying on Lesquiti, where they feel comfortable, but in independent units. And I can give you an example of one person who was not able to live on her own. She's had multiple surgeries since she's been in the independent units. She comes to every social function now. She walks to what we call downtown, which is about 3/4 of a kilometer from the units to the hotel and the provisions. And she's able to get on the ferry and go over and visit her husband, who's in a nursing home in Parksville. So it's just all up and upwards and moving forward, and we really hope to work with you in the future.
Before we go to Director McCormick, I'm going to look for consent from the Assembly to extend the time for another 5 minutes. Would that be sufficient? Okay. Is that okay with the membership? Yeah, I'm seeing thumbs up and everything's okay. Okay, go ahead, Director McCormick. And then did I see Director Fall raise his hand?
Yes, you did. Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Dr. Abrams, for your presentation. I'm from Texada. As you know, we have a full-time health clinic with full-time physician and staff, and we're very blessed to have that based on the industrial nature of our population. So I'm just kind of wondering, excuse me, this is as much to staff, I believe, as it is. It's probably more to staff. For the Texada Health Center, there is a service that has been established for which we contribute so much as part of our taxes. And for capital improvements, it's been a combination of community works funding, reserves, and borrowing. So I'm just wondering why the Lasqueti, or could the Lasqueti Health Center be set up in the same way so that it then is a service and as such is more easily able to access the various opportunities?
Yeah, again, thank you for that because we just had.
Oh, sorry. I do believe that, correct me if I'm wrong, Director McCormick, that's a question for Linda Greenan. Is that correct?
Yes, whoever on staff would choose to answer it, but certainly I'd welcome Dr. Abrams' comments as well.
Okay.
So perhaps staff first.
Okay, we'll go with Manager of Financial Services, Linda Greenan, and then Ron. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. Yes, the service on Texada Island is set up quite differently than the service that we have on the Lasqueti Island. So the service on Texada Island, that regional district owns the building, and then the health services is operated out of there. So we have so basically it's that regional district's responsibility under that service to maintain the building, and then the health services, Vancouver Coastal Health, takes care of the operation. In the case of Lasqueti Island, it's a little bit different because the Last Resort Society owns the building, and our service is simply a contribution service towards the operation of that building or of that service. So we don't, under that contribution service, we don't provide any capital. So this would, that's why this is coming to the regional hospital district, because they, as a designated health center, they do qualify for funding under the Hospital District Act because they are a health facility. So that's sort of a bit of a difference between the way that the services are set up. So if we wanted to change that, that would be changing the service establishment bylaw and going through going through a process to change how that service is designed.
So follow up, please, Chair, to staff. If this could be, could it be made so that through the establishment bylaw, so that a regular service like Texada's could be established without owning the building?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair, through the chair. Yes, it could be established. It would take some research to figure out exactly how that should look and what the, and what the people on Lasqueti want to see with that service.
Okay, thank you. And if Dr. Abrams had a comment, that would be great too.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy and Linda. Just following up, the first thing that came to my mind is, well, if you guys are willing to buy the building, we would appreciate the cash infusion. But just to give you some factual stuff, we get operational costs paid for by tax referendum that we had about 5 years ago. So that covers about 3/4 of our annual operational costs. After that, everything is donations, volunteer work, and capital investment from you guys. And we would look forward to developing. I'm not sure how it would happen, but we'd have to work with you and Linda and everybody else to get some kind of program that you have on Texada. And our chair of the board, Marilyn Darwin was actually talking to your Texada Health Center. I think it was Susan Arnott. Is that?
There's Susan Sharkey, she's our chief
Yeah.
RN, but there's Barb Egglestone, who's
Yeah,
the
and
chair of the Health
that's right.
Services Society.
And she gave us an idea of the funding that you guys have. But your funding is totally VCH, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I'm going to put Director Elliott on the speakers list because it's the second time talking, but I'm going to go to Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief because I see we're already at our 5 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Abrams, for delegating to us. Getting back to the specific requests, do you expect that these lithium batteries would reduce maintenance costs significantly over time, on top of just solving the crisis and getting power back? Would they actually reduce some of the operational costs that the Last Resort Society has to spend maintaining the batteries?
yeah, excellent question. If anybody's lived off grid or have batteries, lead acid batteries, you have to look at them every day and make sure the water level is correct. So that saves labor right there. It's simple as that. And lithium batteries are more stable, and you really don't have to pay that much attention to them other than just watching the power system, which you can do online and don't have to actually attend in person. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. And Chair, I have a proposed motion when we're done with questions.
Okay, seeing as how we've gone past the extra 5 minutes, I'll hand the floor to Director Elliott, and then we'll move on to hopefully an action item. The floor is yours.
I look forward to a motion. My question, I guess, is it possible for the hospital district to own a bank of batteries and not the building? And then it becomes part of our asset management. And then normally when we own something, the use of it is charged out to a health authority of some type in order to cover operating expenses, and whether that would be something that was an option. And I'm just curious about that.
Okay, I believe that's a question for Linda Green, and through the chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair. In this case, I wouldn't recommend that we would own the batteries. What under the Hospital District Act, under the purposes, Section 21B, the hospital district can grant aid for the establishment, acquisition, reconstruction, enlargement, operation, and maintenance of hospitals and hospital facilities. So the hospital district, in this case, an option would be to grant the funds to the health facility for the purchase of those batteries.
Okay. Does that answer the question, Director Elliott?
Well, that tells me what her recommendation was. I was curious about the question was it possible? I don't know whether it's feasible. It maybe isn't, and that's not the way we want to go. But the question was whether it's possible.
Well, is it possible? Linda Green, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. In this case, it wouldn't be possible because then we would own the batteries and we would somehow have to lease them or rent them or something to just the way that the service works. It wouldn't really be possible for us to own the batteries.
That answer?
Well, and yes, I was aware about the lease or the rent, and that would feed the reserves to asset manage in the future was what I was thinking, and it would put it into the operational budget in a organized fashion, but without having just big chunks of asset renewal every 10 years or whatever. Okay,
Director Fall, I think you have a motion on a way forward.
Yes, thank you. I've passed that on to our corporate officer. She'll pop it up. If I get a second report, I'll speak to it. The board directs staff to prepare a report on options regarding the request from the Lesquiti Last Resort Society for capital funding support.
Seconded.
Seconded by Director Lennox. Okay, Director Fall, you're first to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Rural health facilities can help improve public health and reduce visits and use of hospitals. So supporting such facilities with capital challenges is in the interest of the public overall, as well as the finances of the regional hospital district, since reduced use of hospitals may lower maintenance and replacement costs. I am confident that the Lesquiti Health Centre helps residents to receive medical services on the island and reduces use of hospitals, so thereby reducing their maintenance costs. We've heard that it is possible to provide funding, and the Last Resort Society has received funding in the past under, I presume, that same section of the Act that Ms. Greenan quoted. In the past, Dr. Abrams mentioned that 125,000 during the final phases of completing the health center. I believe there is a broader discussion to be had on this topic, which should include issues around that Texada Health Center and other rural facilities if they exist. But given the time sensitivities facing the Lesquiti Last Resort Society, I hope that the motion on the table can help us take a step forward to at least considering options on this topic. And for context, the budget's coming up later on our agenda, draft 2 of it, and the amount being requested is, in my view, and we can ask Ms. Greenan for specifics on it, but it seems to be in the ballpark of what the Lesquiti contributes through its tax requisition every year to the hospital district. And the Lesquiti Health Center received one-time contribution or assistance of 125,000, which was very generous and much appreciated. But I think an occasional capital grant to that rural health centers seems to be, in my mind, supportable.
Okay, who else would like to be on the speakers list? Director Lennox, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chair. And just really, I guess the question that comes to mind is a urgency of the funding and whether the center can continue to operate and provide those services now, and do we have time to wait for a report and so on. That's my question.
It's a good question. I guess the question would be, can we get this report back to us by, I believe, the end of March when we do our final adoption of the financial plan for potential inclusion into the 2025 financial plan? Would that be possible if this motion passes?
I know that's too late.
Or Lord, yours, Linda Greenan.
Thank you. Yes, I think that would be possible. I think that the timing would work well.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that that answers the questions or the need right now for the center. Can they operate?
I believe that would be up to Ron. Oh.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. To put it on the table, a community member loaned us the money to get the batteries installed now, but we have to pay it back within 3 to 4 months, and it's so we have to pay it back. And obviously, we would appreciate a sooner rather than later response in terms of telling us that we have the money. And I just want to say, after this meeting, I really look forward, and we look forward to working with you, the board, to develop to continue to improve on the health services and understand the ins and outs of the funding that are available. It's very, very much appreciated.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I was just reading a note. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I just want to make sure the services can continue, and it's very nice that a community member stepped up like that. It's amazing. Thank you.
Okay, that seems to answer all the questions. Is there any more discussion amongst the elected officials? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None, that's carried. I think I heard a yay from. So.
Yes, he's here virtually.
Yeah, I did. Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Okay, unfinished business, correspondence. Is there anyone that would like to pull any of our correspondence for business? Director Brander.
I guess 8.3.
8.3. 8.3 will be the new 9.1. Anyone else want to pull anything? Okay, 9.3, Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. I guess it's more of a question to staff, but Ms. Lambert's concerns, who do we direct her letter to?
Good question. Does their staff have an answer? Or who would be best to direct the letter from Barbara Lambert to?
That might be through
the working group?
The working group and the planning for
capital planning.
The campus,
campus planning. The campus master plan and the working group, I think, would be the best answer for that.
Okay, I would just suggest that we either forward this on to them.
Yeah. Do we need an actual motion, or if not, I can just bring this right to the working group?
Thank you, Chair. As a member of the working group, I believe you're allowed to forward that on.
Okay.
Public document.
Then I'll just let the assembly know that it's a public document, and I'll put it on the next agenda for the working group with VCH.
Sorry, it took me a moment there looking at the correspondence, just 8.2. I'd like to pull that.
Ah, yes. And if that's okay with our corporate officer, 8.2 will be pulled for item 9. Okay, so 9.1, which is the correspondence from Barbara Lambert, does not need a motion. It's going to go before our next working group. And I just want to say, I have similar concerns to Barbara Lambert with my interactions at the facility. Good job, Director Lennox, pulling item 8.2. I think that's rather important for us.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Really, there is a request here. Basically, VCH is asking us whether we require any additional information on their request from 2024. And I think it's a large request, $1.5 million on top of what we've already budgeted. And as we've just seen from our delegation, we have these pressures, cost sharing agreements that'll probably add to those. And so I guess the first question is, do we need, do we require any more information? And we need to deal with this. We need to actually make a decision on some pretty key things and a lot of work that's actually already underway at the facility. If you look at the list, I know folks that work there, right? We all do. IV room upgrades, that's underway. The emergency department triage is underway. The monitoring system may not have been purchased, but again, it's outdated. And so, and then the video system. So we got some really important things for the safe operation of the facility that are pending. They're asking us. So I defer to, to the chair about where, where do we go from here?
It's a very good question, and usually when we get a correspondence like that, Johan's here, but I don't see him here. So I'm going to ask our manager of financial services, Linda Green, and if she can provide any information on this cost share request that's before us.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. So I was contacted by Johan Marais, to follow up on this cost share request, because they did come as a delegation I think twice in the past about this particular cost share request. So I just recommended to him that he, ask again formally to see if the board was willing to provide the cost share request. So they just need to know, do you need any more information to consider this?
Director Elliott.
So it is my understanding that some of these, like the emergency department triage upgrades, are underway and almost completed already.
Mm-hmm.
So are they looking for after the fact cost sharing? Is that appropriate, or are these additional upgrades and different than the ones they've already been doing?
Through the chair to Linda Green, and go ahead.
Thank you. I think that these are the projects that they had approved, but they had asked for funding for it, and the board didn't give them an answer. So I think they must have, I'm not sure, that would be a question for VCH, but I think that these are the projects that are underway.
Yeah. Any other questions from directors?
I'm just wondering if we have rules.
Oh, Director Elliott is asking, are there any rules about that? Like if we are allowed to provide funding to something that is already underway?
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the, I've never actually come across that before, where it's something that's underway. We've always just, granted aid for these projects. It hasn't actually come up before where they've been, where it's been after the fact that they've already started them.
Okay.
So I'd have to look further into that.
And I have a question before I hand it back to Director Lennox. Have we received a cost share request for 2025? Like for this year's budget? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. No, I think that this is their request for 2025. They don't submit a request every year. They have a bundle of projects. So I'm taking this as their request for 2024. and extending into 2025.
Okay. Yeah, because the correspondence says the 2024 cost share request, and that's where I was kind of wondering, are we going to get another letter, I guess, at the end of March at the 11th hour and 59 minutes? Okay, Director Lennox and then Director Elliott again.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Green. And I think, we require additional information on this topic on how projects proceed with a pending cost share agreement with no confirmation. And subsequently, I suggest that we really lay it out there that we're into 2025. This is a very large cost share request, and we got to figure out how to pay for it and maybe spread it out if it's not in every, just to back up a notch, forgive me. We get these cost share requests every year I've been involved. And it seems like that's kind of the normal sort of approach, and it's very hard for us to budget. We've had good discussions here about that we need clarity. We can't keep having these large cost share requests. So I suggest that we consider how to spread this out over 2024 and 2025. I look at this list and it's tough. Like I've worked in this facility. I know every single one of these items. I've touched them. They're needed, but you can't keep having $1.5 million requests every year or two. It's just not attainable. So I just think we should respond asking for clarity on sort of that concept of paying for it maybe over a little more time and how the mechanism works. So we're very clear because these projects have started. Finally, I'll just say, and I'm not supposed to get involved in the minutia, but the projects that are going on in our facility, we're using high-end materials. I've talked to the tradesmen involved. We're going for the Cadillac versions of some of this stuff. And we've also talked about that in our budget deliberations where we can't afford the Cadillacs. So the countertop surfaces and stuff, I know it's minutia, but it adds up to the cost of these projects, very large numbers. So thank you for letting me.
And Director Elliott, I believe you were next. And then Director McCormick, if that's okay with Director McCormick. Oh, yep. Okay, go ahead, Director Elliott.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I guess my concern relates to the order of when expenditures happen and when they're asking for our approval for cost share, and what happens if the board should decide against an expenditure that was already expended. And so that kind of, it seems to me that if we're obligated to cost share on certain things and those decisions are made and the projects are underway before they even ask us, it undermines our ability as a board to make independent decisions around money. And so it goes back to my original question about asking after the fact and what happens if we should deny doing things after the fact. Like, it seems bad management that they're always coming last minute for requests when they themselves have to put them in the budget and get them approved. And when they're putting them in their budget for approval, they should be also notifying us that that's what they're doing so that we would have a heads up, and that's not happening. So I guess the question is, if there isn't rules about funding something that's already underway, maybe there ought to be, and how do we protect our interest in having independent decision-making?
I'll give a very brief answer, as my understanding is we can choose not to provide the funding if VCH does want to move forward with these projects and spend the money and we don't authorize the funding. They're still on the hook for completing those projects because they're the ones holding the contracts, is my understanding. I saw Linda Greenan have her hand up. I believe she can give more accurate information than I can. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. This was actually in relation to to VCH asking after the fact. I did want to mention too that they did actually come with this request in 2023. So they did ask for it ahead of time, but I think they've gone ahead with the project. But as far as the regional hospital district funding something after the fact, that is actually provided for under the Hospital District Act, Section 21C. And that section says, the purposes of the regional hospital district are to assume obligations of any member municipality or any improvement district not within the definition of municipality or any hospital corporation or any member treaty First Nation with respect to the repayment of money borrowed and provided for the financing of hospital projects and interest on it, or to provide reimbursement to a municipality improvement district, hospital corporation, or member treaty First Nation for money provided for financing hospital projects that were raised or obtained otherwise than by borrowing. So I think that section of the Act, you know, does allow us to provide the funding after the fact.
Okay, thank you. That's very, very astute and accurate information. Thank you. And I do believe the next speaker on the list is Director McCormick. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any further questions from the Health Authority, but I do have a question about the Section 20 reserve that we have that will be coming up as we consider the budget shortly, and it looks like there's nearly $8 million in it. Now, I know that we set up a funding mechanism where we contribute to the reserve annually for cost share requests that aren't really requests like this. But do we have the funding in the reserves to cover this?
Go ahead, through the chair.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. Yes, we do have funding in the reserves, as Director McCormick pointed out. We're putting funds into the reserve for projects such as this, or for renewal of health facilities. So there is projected to be just almost 8.9 million at the end of 2025 in the reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Thanks, Chair.
speakers?
That's it.
Okay. So I guess we can also deal with this item through a resolution now, or we can deal with it when we get to item 14.1, when we get to our financial plan. Seeing some nods around the table. Okay, since that is business arising from correspondence, we'll move on to the chair's report. And I'll be brief because I see the time. In response to the resolution directing myself to contact the chair of the Nanaimo Regional Hospital District, that has been done, and I've been put in contact with VHA's rep of capital and financial projects. We have similar experiences with our local health authorities presenting cost share requests late in our budget cycles. That was one of the things that he pointed out that is frustrating. There does not seem to be a network of regional hospital district chairs within Vancouver Island Health Authority like we have on the coast between Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District and Sea to Sky Regional Hospital District. They also, over in Nanaimo, have a select committee that spearheads capital planning and advocacy for their community health priorities. What may be a priority of the ministry and its various departments is not always in alignment with the needs and priorities of the community that is providing the funding. On January the 8th, I met with the chairs of the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District and the Sea to Sky Regional Hospital District. There was a number of items for discussion. Our main focus of the meeting is actually, I'll cover that in camera. But we did express that the improvement in relationships between us and Vancouver Coastal Health is on an upward trend. We actually are getting some more communication. And there was also some discussion about the capital planning group, which is within our existing memorandum of understanding, maybe coming up in either March or April. And there is some desire to potentially participate as a joint with all of our boards. We then had another meeting scheduled on the 27th, but unfortunately, due to childcare shortages, one of our hospital chairs was not able to attend, so we postponed that meeting. But it does appear to be a common concern amongst all the hospital district chairs I've spoken with that whatever health authority they're in, they come to the hospital district at the 11th hour and 59 minutes and go, hey, we want another $1 million or another $1.5 million. And it's becoming increasingly frustrating for all the local regional hospital districts. And apparently that was the reason why Sea to Sky for 2 years in a row declined any funding request, because they just said, hey, you're coming to us too late. With that, that is my very Coles Notes Chairs report. I'm sure I've left a bunch of things out, but I do recognize the time. So we will move on to the consent agenda, which there isn't any, there's no items there. So no items to remove. No resolutions. So we are on to reports 14.1. This is the draft 2 of our financial plan, and I'm going to hand the floor over to Linda Greenan for, I presume, some presentation for us.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have a short presentation. So I'll share my screen right now. Okay, so thank you. I'm pleased to present the, are you saying,
Yep, we see it.
saying the right one? Okay. So I'm pleased to present the final draft of the 2025 budget for the Regional Hospital District. So the assumptions that go into this presentation are, I'll go over the assumptions and the operations of the hospital district, Vancouver Coastal Health cost share, past requests. I'm not dealing with this new request. I'll go over the Willingdon Creek Village, the lease payments, and the associated costs associated with that and the borrowing. The planned reserve fund contributions, and then the residential tax rates per 100,000 and per household. So the operational costs that go into this budget, there's not a lot of operational costs related to the hospital district. So we've just made estimates of what those costs will be. Return on investments, we're planning on, we're projecting 3%. That could change depending on how what kind of interest rates we get. Tax rates are expressed as a residential tax rate per $100,000, and they are now based on the 2025 completed roll values. Actual tax rates will be based on the 2025 revised roll values, which aren't released until the end of March. And the 2024 actuals that you see in this budget draft are to December 31st, but they're not adjusted. There still might be some adjusting entries, but that's pretty close to where we're going to be at the end of the year. But for example, we haven't posted the interest earnings yet. We do that at the very end when everything is tied up. So as far as operations, the main operations of the hospital district are maintaining the Arbutus Street building and then the Abbotsford Street building. And so we have, for the Arbutus Street building, we have that leased to the Miclat Recovery Society. So we have no cost projected in this budget to maintain that as they are doing the maintenance. The Abbotsford Street site, we have $5,000 budgeted. That's in case we need to do some debris removal, danger tree, general cleanup around the facility, not in the facility. And for legal fees, we have $10,000 budgeted and professional fees of $10,000. And then insurance, we're projecting an 11% increase. We don't really know where insurance will go, but we're putting an 11% increase just as a placeholder. The VCH cost share requests, just an update on we had 2 cost share requests that VCH was drawing down on, that we had approved, that the board had approved in 2021, and then another one that they approved in 2022. So for that, we had borrowed 1.5 million over 10 years. So that will be paid off in 2032, and the annual payments are $191,000. And then we had borrowed an additional $591,000 for the second cost share request, and the payment on that is $80,677 per year, and that is 10-year debt, and it will be paid off in 2033. So there's $6,904 of those 2 cost share requests that's coming forward and is included in the 2025 budget. So there's no new funding needed for that. It's just a carryover. The Willingdon Creek Village, we have lease revenue of $1.19 million that we receive annually. And then we have debt payments of $1.8 million. And those debt payments will be extinguished in 2034. And the interest rate is 4.52%. And then in 2028, that interest rate will be reset one more time. And we are also putting funds, this budget plans to put funds aside for the maintenance reserve of the Willingdon Creek Village. And that's projected at $240,000 annually. And it's estimated that it will be at $2.99 million at the end of 2025. Those funds could be used for any repairs and maintenance of the building envelope or eventual replacement of the building. The other reserve fund that we have is which is the one that we would use for cost share requests or for any other projects that come up. And the board had agreed to put $20 per $100,000 away annually into that reserve. So the contribution is $1.817 million per year. And the balance at the end of 2025, I think I said 8.9 million in my other, when I spoke earlier, I meant 7.9 million is the estimated balance at the end of 2025. And that, as I said, can be used for asset renewal, replacement, upgrades, or for BCH cost share requests. As a residential tax rate, this budget hasn't changed much from 2024. And so the requisition increase overall is $81,000. And that means a residential tax rate of approximately $34.60 per $100,000. For Tla'amin, which pays a little bit fewer of the budget items, their rate will be 24.69 cents per $100,000. And on a cost per average home, we're looking at between $147.20 in Tla'amin to the highest is $237.48 in Electoral Area C, just because their assessed values, they have a higher average residential value in Area C. And so the next stage is just budget adoption projected for March 2025. So do the directors have any questions?
Yeah, I'll open the floor up for questions. Director Lennox, Director Elliott, anyone else on the speakers list? Okay, Director Lennox.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 or 4. I'll try to just be fair and do a couple and then see what comes up. And just thanks for your presentation, Ms. Green. And I noticed, first of all, the insurance costs 11% increase again this year. I think last year it was pretty severe as well, and all the way through COVID years and all that. What are we looking at for the future? Like, do you have any sense that we're going to continue to get these massive sort of insurance increases every year, or who advises you on this? Or are we kind of out there just at the whim of the insurance agent?
Well, through the chair to director, sorry.
We've tried that before.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. The way we understand it is, and we haven't actually had an update on the insurance recently, but think that the market has, softened. So the rates shouldn't continue to increase. I'm just putting that in there as a budget placeholder. And any money that isn't spent on insurance will go forward as a surplus. But I think the big thing with the insurance increases is that the cost of construction. And so every time we look at our values, we have to increase the values because the construction costs have gone up. So it's not necessarily just the rate, but the amount that we pay has to go up because we're increasing the value of the asset.
Bingo. Thank you for that. And just as a follow-up, that relates to my next point is, you showed our sort of historical cost share request from the past, and it appears we used quite a bit of debt to pay for those cost share requests versus using the reserves that you mentioned that are almost 8 million now. In my mind, that's telling me it's because we need to build those reserves like quite large for these huge capital projects that we may have to undertake down the road when our facilities have reached their lifespan. So I guess maybe you could explain why we've used such amount of debt versus using our reserves. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. Yes, so what happened was when we took out the debt for the Williamton Creek Village in 2014, what the plan was we would save funds and then we were going to so the board had continued to save funds into the reserve. And then the plan was to put a large chunk of those funds down onto the debt when it renewed, because it renews every 10 years and then the rate gets reset. We were going to put a big chunk down, but then we found out in 2024 that we actually couldn't do that. And so now we had these reserves available, but in the meantime, we had borrowed because we didn't want to dig into those reserves and then not have a big chunk to put down because we didn't know what the rate would be. We were concerned that it would be quite a high rate and meaning a large debt payment. So,
Thank you for the history lesson. That's
yeah, so now we've freed up those reserves.
Yeah. Director Elliott.
Thank you. So I remember when we were talking about draft one, there was an increase basically to what we wanted to put in reserves because we were looking to plan for future major increases in hospital facilities in our area because we know there's a need and that's upcoming. We don't know what it's going to cost, but it's, you know, prudent to plan ahead. And I've noticed most of the rates in the table are kind of down from last year. Is that because, how did that work out?
Through the chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so all that is the rate decrease is simply because the assessed values went up. So we're not really requisitioning, we're requisitioning some more money, but not because the assessed values went up, the rate goes down a little bit. We would have had to requisition more for the rate to go up.
Okay, so the cost per average home was also down, which would lead me to believe that our requisition is down, but you're saying the requisition is still up. But anyway, because the cost per average home is not in terms of rates, it's the portion of requisition. Was there a distribution difference between that allowed for the cities to be, well, it looks like everybody's went down.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, the requisitions went up overall in all areas. So not necessarily the price per average home, but the overall dollar value of all of the assets. So that includes businesses and industry. It's up overall. So
just we built a lot of new stuff.
Yes, and the value of some of the assessments has increased. So BC Assessment has said that the values are increased overall. So it's because we're dividing the total requisition over all of that tax base. Because the tax base is larger, you have a lower rate per $100,000. So I can go back to the presentation.
I think we must have more homes.
I guess I have a very brief question related to Director Elliott's. I'm looking on page 5 of 12, and it says average home values 2024 and 2025, but those numbers appear to all be the same. So I'm just wondering if that's a typo. And I see Director McCormick nodding. Maybe that was your question. That's page 5 of 12, the second pink box.
Projection.
Thank you. I'm just looking at that.
It just wasn't updated because those figures are.
I kind of think the increase in overall assessment is due to additional homes, like we built more homes or more buildings or more whatever.
The increase could be a combination. It could be you know, a market value increase, or it could be new inventory. So it's a combination of both.
Yeah, okay.
Market change and new inventory.
Second follow-up question.
Director Elliott?
The new cost sharing requests that we were made aware of through the correspondence, is that separate? Is that included in this budget draft or not?
Linda Greening, go ahead.
Through the chair, no, neither that cost share request or the Vancouver Coastal Health cost share request are included in this draft. They were received after I had built this budget draft.
Yeah. Follow-up question from Director Elliott. Will that be included in draft 3?
Thank you, Chair. No, because the board hasn't given me direction to include that in draft 3. So for the March meeting, what I'll do is I'll bring forward a report for the board to consider the funding request for the Lasqueti Island Health Center. but I won't be bringing forward anything unless I have board direction on the Vancouver Coastal Health cost share request. So no, neither of those will be included.
Thank you for that clarification. Did we ever get a mover for this one? I don't think so. Okay, I'm sorry, Director McCormick and then Director Southcott.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm failing to understand respectfully how we can judge how the increased assessments affect the result in a lower tax rate when the assessments in the report are still the same. I realize you said it's a combination of new inventory, but that must be very hard to calculate that part of it because we don't know what the new assessed values are going to be yet. When will we know that?
Through the chair, go ahead, Linda Green.
Thank you, Chair. I did incorporate the new assessed values, and I am going to bring a report to the next Finance Committee that outlines those. So you will have those then. So this has been calculated on the completed assessed values. I think I'm just trying to find that report, but I think I probably forgot to update the average home values in my report.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
No, I did update the average home values in my in the report. So the cost per average home that you're seeing on that report is based on the new home values. Maybe I didn't put the right number in my report. For example, the city of Powell River, I have an average home value in 2020 of $530,416, and in 2025 I have an average home value of $585,037.
Okay,
Well,
because in the report it says 2024 for the city of Powell River is 585 for 24 and then 585 for 25.
Yeah, I think we've identified where the error is. On page 5 of 12 of the report, the second table has 2024 and 2025 being the same. Based on the figures we just heard, I believe 2024 is also showing 2025. They're showing the same numbers.
Yes, that was just an error in the table.
Okay, I think we've made a good catch, and that should hopefully be rectified in the near future. Does that answer all your questions, Director McCormick?
Yes, thank you. I was also going to ask actually about the cost share request if another motion is required, and I believe Ms. Green had answered that yes, it would be required. Is that correct?
Yes, and our corporate officer already has a draft motion being crafted right next to me as we speak. But before we get to a motion, we have one more speaker on the list, and that is Director Southcott. Oh, and then Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a point of information, on page 9, the average home value chart looks correct. But my question is just an incidental question with regard to insurance, which is a fascinating topic these days. This isn't the insurance quoted here is market insurance, correct? It's not MIABC?
Linda Green, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, yes, right now we have our property insurance through a market, an insurance agent, and we are actually getting quotes from the MIABC and potentially switching over to them in 2025.
Good question.
If I may be just watching this, of course, because it's been so uncertain and unstable over recent years. This may not be a question that is answerable right now, but is there, or maybe you've been working on this, is there a difference? MIABC, of course, has a narrower market, it being focused at local governments particularly. Is that is the risk better in their business than the general market? Again, that's just kind of an incidental question, but it is fascinating for, the scary stuff that's happening across the insurance market.
Well, I'll that question to our manager of financial services, though that it's a good question, though it might even require a staff report to really get into the details of. Let's see if our manager of financial services, Linda Greening, can answer that on the fly.
Thank you. I can't actually answer that right now. I would have to, we have our liability insurance with the Municipal Insurance Association, but I would have to ask them more questions through the when we get the quotes about the actual insurance. I don't know the answer to those questions.
That's okay. Thanks very much, Chair.
Okay. And we get to our we'll get to Director Fall, and then Director Lennox will have a second kick at the can. And just to remind everyone, we're still doing the asking of questions. We're not really getting into the debate of things because we don't have a motion on the floor. Director
Thank
Fall,
you, Chair.
the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was just going to point out what Director Helcott had already pointed out. You beat me to it, which is that on page 9, the average home value table looks to be correct. I think it's just missed in the one before that, so that can help clarify some of the earlier questions for those interested. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and then Director Lennox, second kick at the can. Go
Thanks, Chair. This is hopefully be a quick one. I noticed in your presentation, Ms. Greening, you had Willingdon Maintenance. We're developing a good reserve fund there. I guess right away, my question is how will we know about, the building envelope and these pending costs that one day will come to us? Will it be sort of all of a sudden a huge cost share? How do we anticipate when those points will come when we need to consider, the building and that? Who lets you know about these things?
I might even have an answer to that one. The wonderful gentleman that we saw this morning, the new manager of asset management, I presume, maybe, or I'm seeing a shake from the CIO, but I'll hand this question over to Linda Greening.
I think that would be up to Vancouver Coastal Health to let us know that that repairs or maintenance are required.
Okay, so that's VCH then, that is keeping an eye on that asset that we are on the hook for covering. Is that the last question? Okay, seeing none, we can get on to resolutions and motions, and hopefully do this. We have a motion here that our corporate officer has put forward, and I think we should deal with it before we get into the actual financial plan draft too. Can we get that up on the screen? Go, Director Elliott.
Make the motion.
Director Elliott is moving the motion. Director Lennox is seconding. Any discussion on this? I think we've already asked all the questions. Okay, since no more discussion on this item, all in favor?
Aye.
Yep. And none opposed, the motion is carried. So when we get to our next financial plan in March, it's going to include a report from Laskeedy and the cost share request from Johan from January the 9th. That leaves us with 2 more motions before us, but I see an and, so it's actually 1 motion for 14.1. Now
moved.
Oh, Director Fall and Director Lennox. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Good. That brings us to bylaws, which there's none. New business, question period. Mr. Galinsky, are you there?
I am online, Chair. Thank you very much. I don't have any questions at this time. Thanks for the opportunity.
And any other questions from any other members of the public? Okay, seeing none. We do have an in-camera session. Do we still have to read that out?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This part of the motion is different than the previous one.
Okay, so we are going to need a motion to move in camera. Director Lennox.
Chair, I move that the board move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91. E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the board considers that disclosure could be reasonably expected to harm the interests of the regional district. N, the consideration of whether a board meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2, and 2, a part of a board meeting must be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to one or more of the following. B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the regional district and a provincial government or the federal government, or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government, or both, and a third party. Very wordy.
Seconded by Director Elliott. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed? That motion is carried. We are going back in camera.
Chair,
Yes.
would you perhaps tell the people online that the planning committee meeting will resume right after this?
Yes, that's very good information. To all of you that are attending to see what's going on with the planning committee, my apologies. We are a little behind schedule, but after the in-camera session, we will reconvene and the planning committee will get started. So if you're here for that, you didn't miss anything. We just haven't gotten there yet. And then this is where all the public have to leave.
But we can put a chair out there for you. I think there are some chairs.
Budget meetings, they go long.
Chair, can we have a 2-minute bio break?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute bio break.
Bio on, man.
Organize this.
My apologies, it's these.
Oh, no.
Usually the hospital district meetings don't last this long.
More and more though. Not to be seen. Wait for what?
Recording in progress.
Okay, are we good to go? Okay. We are now back into open session. Oh, sorry, over. We have no rise and report. That brings us to adjournment. Thank you very much for attending. And for those of you interested in the planning committee, we will start shortly.
Get moving on that.
We don't have a chair yet.
Thanks,
Oh,
everyone.
right.
Have fun at your next one.
Just need, for
Thanks,
everybody
everyone.
planning, we're just going to need a
Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Recording stopped.